Hello, and welcome to the Sexuality and Gender in Manga podcast, where we apply a critical and academic lens to depictions of human sexuality and gender as they manifest in the medium of manga. I am Ren. I hold a degree in psychology from the University of Waterloo, with a minor in sexuality relationships and family studies, and I volunteer with the Sexual Assault Support Center in the field of crisis intervention. My partner on this pod, and in life and love in general, is Dr. J. Andrew DeMann, an associate professor of teaching at St. Jerome's University, and an Eisner Award-winning comics scholar who studies and teaches manga at the university.
Thank you. So today we are doing Spy Family. Spy Family is a wildly popular manga published online via the Shonen Jump Plus website since 2019. The series is written and illustrated by Tetsuya Endo, an artist who made his fame publishing very dark manga. Spy Family was, for Endo, something of a palate cleanser, not intended to be a sort of main gig. Endo refers to the project as a sort of rehab for him. The series, however, became a massive, massive hit, spawning an anime, video games, a movie, a Universal Studios amusement park ride, and so much merch, while cementing Anya Forger's place as the most, quote, protect at all costs character in all of modern manga.
She's so sweet.
She really
She's just a little baby.
So I think the main reason I put Spy Family on the list was I really wanted to talk about the idea of the nuclear family.
Yeah.
As a construct and as something that Spy Family plays with in ways that I think are interesting, and I think that could be actually read a variety of ways, including antithetically, which is kind of unique, let's say. So orbiting all of this is, for me, the question, does Spy Family subvert the concept of the traditional nuclear family, or does it endorse the concept of the traditional nuclear family?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think the ultimate message I end up taking away from Spy Family is that family is what you make it. But they do still have, in a lot of ways, a very stereotypical family, or at least the construction of it. Like, the individual players in the family are very unique, but like Yor is in a lot of ways very mothering and sweet, and Lloyd is, on the other hand, more disciplinary and like go-getter and stuff. And even though his version of discipline is looking at Anya and being like, oh no, she's cute, let's just try our best. And like, Anya is very much like the perfect child in a lot of different capacities. She's sweet, she's caring. Is she good at school? No, but like socially, she's all you could ask for in a kid. Through cheating. She's great. So it's a bit of an interesting, multifaceted conceptualization in terms of the ways in which each character play out traditional nuclear family roles and appear or strive to appear as if they are obtaining those roles to others, like their brothers and from work friends and just like the neighbors across the hall. And in other capacities, they are very much not prototypical at all. Most families don't have an assassin in them that I'm aware of, at least. Are you an assassin?
No.
I guess it's my turn.
Oh dear. So we should probably define the nuclear family. This is a concept that goes back to at least the 1950s. The idea is sort of a norm established that your average family, or maybe even just your acceptable family or ideal family, is a husband and a wife, each occupying very particular roles aligned with gender roles at the time. A child, a house in the suburbs. I mean, we could go on and on. There's a lot of aspects to it. But the modern concern with the nuclear family is the ways that it puts pressure on people to conform to an ideal.
I do also kind of want to like issue a tiny correction there. The nuclear family, in some ways, does also kind of mandate 2 children.
Oh, yeah.
Which we don't see in Spy Family. But the prototypical, quote-unquote, American nuclear family usually is 2 parents, male and female, who are married, specifically, and have never been married to anyone else prior. And then 2 children as a result of that union. So in some ways, Spy Family, by only having 3 members of their family, unless we're counting Bond, which we should, but he's not a child, he's a pet, they only have 3 human members, which is in some ways shifting away from the concept of the nuclear family, which is good. in this economy, it should be. Sorry.
So what can you tell us about like the pressure that the nuclear family creates? Like, why is it a bad thing to have an ideal, I guess?
Oh, God. Fuck. Ideals are nice in theory.
Ideal even.
Yeah, ideal even. The problem is that I wouldn't define it as an ideal. I would define it as a pressured stereotype that eliminates or attempts to eliminate the value of other family formats. So in North American culture, for example, there's a lot of pressure on individuals who are younger these days to like be married, to have a home, and to start having kids and fuel the next generation and stuff. And anyone in the age bracket of like 20 to 35 can probably say, holy fuck, that's not really an option. I'm sure there are some people out there who are technically meeting all of those boxes, but there's a lot of people who are still living with their parents in that age bracket, or alternatively, people who have moved out but don't own property because owning property is insane these days. And a whole bunch of other different, configurations of what in reality is just life. The issue with having an ideal in terms of the nuclear family is that it affects the ways not only that we shame people who are in situations that are quote unquote non-normative, there's a lot of news articles, for example, about people in that age range living at home with their parents still and saying that it's sad and lazy and all that crap, which is bullshit.
So an outdated ideal for sure.
So an outdated ideal. But then kind of on top of that, it ignores the other potential life options that people might want to explore that are different. For example, their polyamory is growing in... I don't want to call it trendy. So polyamory, for example, is growing in popularity as an option because there has been slightly less pressure societally on the concept of a nuclear family. Not to say it doesn't exist, because gosh dang, it's there. But there's more room for exploration, which means that people are exploring different family structures. And then the other thing, which is applicable to us, is blended families are very increasingly common these days. And we are one. And it sucks because there are stereotypes that we are subjected to as a result of that existence. And I'm sure other people can speak to this as well. It's a very common experience these days. There are societal norms that are applied to those instances that are used as a form of judgment and a rubric for how people's lives should be.
So, bringing this to Spy Family, I did a little research. There's actually some good articles published on this exact subject, trying to figure out whether this is a subversion of the nuclear family or an endorsement of it. Now, just to outline the arguments on either side in its simplest form, Spy Family is a story about a fucking badass James Bond spy settling down and realizing that what he really wanted all along wasn't saving the world or having the coolest life ever. It was having a family. And now that argument is said to kind of endorse the nuclear family to an absurd degree. Now, the subversion argument is the family's not actually real. It's fake. Lloyd isn't married to an ideal housewife. He's married to a badass assassin. His kid is a psychic. His dog is prophetic. So it's very much playing with the concept of the family. And I think this is a big part of why Spy Family is such a delightful read. It's doing cool things with the family. So trying to isolate that has been the subject of some scholarly work. I'm just going to highlight a couple here. Shreya Mukherjee writes, quote, "The family that Twilight forges for the mission is ironically called the Forger family. However, the family name is not merely a silly wordplay. It is more than just a pun. It subverts the heteronormative family structure that is based on blood kinship and creates space for alternative family dynamics." End quote. So for Mukherjee, what you have here is something that says that the nuclear family is really not that interesting. Not fun. We're going to have this super weird, cool spy murder family thing instead because it's better.
It's badass.
Yeah.
It's super badass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair?
Sorry. No, I didn't know if you were, like, ending a point there, or, like, do you want me to
No,
contribute?
you're not right. I did not provide a prompt or a question.
You didn't. That was a sentence.
That was on me.
Mm-hmm.
So, so I also looked at interviews with Endo. What Endo thinks of what they've created, accidentally again, because they were just trying to do like a little one-off fun thing.
Yeah, but it turned out so great.
So scholars have pointed out, and Endo has agreed with this, that the visuals in Spy Family, the fashion, the architecture, are very specifically drawn from 1960s and 70s European aesthetics, from magazines, in fact. Endo notes that he takes a lot of visual reference from fashion magazines of the era. There's a nostalgia there that I do think venerates a traditional family, particularly for a story that is otherwise quite modern. Endo also notes that he uses the facial expressions of Yor and Lloyd to reveal their dark side at times, usually when they're doing violence. So a lot of the value orientation of the manga is actually happening at the visual level, which I will argue, for anyone who's seen the anime, is not there in the anime. I think when Lloyd and Yor are killing people, you're not seeing that same delight or sociopathy that we are seeing in the manga. And I think that very much inflects the character dynamics. So there's a transition issue there, a translation issue, a transmediation issue.
Yeah, well, they might have also softened it intentionally to create more of a nuclear family kind of vibe.
Yeah, we could argue the anime's been sanitized a little bit.
Yeah, we could. The anime has been a little sanitized.
And it is very popular with kids, we should point out.
God, I love it. Well, and your kids love it too. The darkness there is really the subversive part in a lot of different ways. Although I do have some kind of, well, I don't know. So, for example, Yor, the specific gender role that Yor would normally play in a traditional quote-unquote nuclear family is that of a loving housewife who cooks and cleans and is like super supportive of their child and monitors homework and all that stuff. Some ways in which she does not support that. She's god-awful at cooking.
Yep.
There's a whole...
Dangerously so.
Yeah. Dangerously so. Her food is poison unless you're her brother, and even then. And then the other component of it in general that is the underlying fact of all of this, she's not biologically related to Anya. And as we see throughout the story, her attachment to Anya isn't immediate. It is something that slowly grows over time. She does fulfill a role in the first place of this, like, loving, caring mother who thinks Anya is adorable and wants the best for her because it's, like, what Lloyd would want for his family. But originally it's coming from this selfish place of, I need to look normal. And I need to fit in a way that prevents people from identifying me as a potential assassin. But as the story moves forward, we see her actually growing rather fond of Anya. And like the cruise ship stuff that they do in the anime. Like, she realizes she doesn't want to die because she wants to go home and see her family again.
Okay, so related to what you're saying, Hannah Collins wrote a really good article for the Anime Herald that I highly recommend to anyone. She says this, quote, Lloyd and Yor are a perfect match to form their own unconventionally conventional family unit. Lloyd, uninterested in a normal life, cares little for Yor's shortcomings in the home. Her cooking is her other deadly skill, or that she's a career woman. Yor, meanwhile, is simply relieved that having a husband and child, even if it's a sham, will shelter her from the pressure to be a real wife and mother, end quote. Collins then argues that, quote, the speed at which Lloyd manufactures the Forger family and their continued success in appearing perfect completely undermines the nuclear family's sense of authenticity. In this light, the enforcement of a set family structure at the expense of all others is not only illusionary, it can also breed demonization. In addition to its usage as an anti-communist tactic, domestic containment doubled as an effort to create secure home environments, which were reliant on traditional gender roles to stabilize a post-war society, one that women were less than enthused about. Having gained unprecedented autonomy in the workplace during World War II, women in the U.S. and other allied nations were expected to return to the home and become its domestic backbone, as well as the sexual servants of their husbands and primary caregivers to children. End quote.
Fuck that shit. Sorry.
So, the idea is that the sort of aesthetic setting of Spy Family very much speaks to this nuclear fantasy of restoring things like gender order after World War II shook those things up.
Yeah, and there is a lot of prevalence of that discussion throughout Spy Family in general. Both Lloyd and Yor, although kind of on different sides, are fighting for what they believe in, which is the perpetuation of peace and the ability for other people to have normal lives and normal families. And so that's kind of reinforcing this in a way. And especially that both of these super hyper skilled individuals who are badass in their own right are then coming home to be a part of a nuclear family, and that's the part that they find rewarding. And you know what? Honestly, what a mood. But it is also reinforcing stereotypes there, right? Like, but at the same time, neither of them know about the other person's double life.
Right.
Lives. And I don't know why I said that so weird. And as a result, there is inherent freedom in that. They don't have to pretend to be something they aren't because they have the ability to go out and be that person independently of their spouse. So there's a lot of ways in which one could view it as saying, hey, nuclear family's great and all, but you still need to be able to be your own person outside of that. Or alternatively, you could interpret it as, hey, the best thing at the end of the long workday of fucking murdering people is to come home and have babies.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that Yor takes a while to warm up to Anya.
Yeah.
Lloyd is chapter 1. And originally, I would argue that the narrative is framed as Lloyd's story.
Yes.
And then shifts and becomes Lloyd, Yor, and Anya as kind of shared protagonists.
Yeah.
But there's this fun kind of like leveling effect where you could argue that the family is the facade, right? But you could argue that at some point in the text, the family becomes the real thing and the spy thing becomes the facade.
Yep.
Where it's sort of maybe a question of priorities. What's more important to who at any given time? After a while, it's not the mission.
Yeah, for sure. And then something I also kind of want to touch on that I just kind of thought of, so we might have to circle back to your point because I'm going to forget if I don't mention it now. I think it's also interesting the manner in which this family is constructed, in part in sequence of events, because in some ways it's displaying a level of priority. So Lloyd is the father figure and in some ways is presented as the most important person in the family, partially because the story starts from his perspective. Yep. So he then goes to adopt Anya because children are necessary for his mission, but also like realistically children are conceptualized as part of a family. There are a lot of people who falsely believe that a family is not a family unless there are children involved, which is not a vibe, but here we are. And then
you're referring to the procreative model.
Yeah, the procreative model. And then Yor comes in last as this kind of like necessary component still, but in some ways as an afterthought, a convenience of like, yes, this helps our story look better. However, she wouldn't have strictly been necessary for the mission. She was just the cherry on top. So
yeah, I think there's also fun sort of metaphorical attributes to this. The idea that like the way Lloyd is pressured by his job to form this family and has to pass all these sort of societal standards in order to be successful is very much meant to be analogous to the ways in which a man or a person going out into society also has to jump through these hoops in order to be deemed successful, accepted, whatever we want to frame it. And again, I think there's ways in which the story kind of ridicules that concept. I'm going to make a stupid comparison here. Philip K. Dick. He does this thing where he just like keeps having these weird contrivances in his stories to the point that the stories collapse. So the idea that like Lloyd is a spy playing a father, seeks out a child, and he doesn't get a normal child, he gets a telepath. And then seeks out a wife and doesn't get a normal wife, he gets an assassin. And then seeks out a dog. He's doing everything according to the recipe, but he's not getting the right ingredients according to the standards of the nuclear family. So I think the fact that these like unbelievable contrivances, I should say, keep happening is meant to subvert the concept of the nuclear family.
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
at least provide the space to comment on that.
100%. It's interesting. I do also want to comment kind of in terms of like how we were discussing the nuclear family can potentially be negative. For yours specifically, we see it play out that she is afraid of literally being arrested and captured if she does not find a family to blend in with. And
It's intense.
yeah, and that is honestly a little resemblant of women in the workforce today. Personal experience, I've had people ask me during interviews if I have a family or children because they want to know if I have other obligations outside of work. I doubt that you have been asked the same thing during interviews.
I don't believe so.
Yeah. So there is a double standard as well, where women are expected to have more of a family orientation, and when they don't, it's weirder for them.
Yeah, they're supposed to be more beholden to it.
Yeah. Whereas previously, at the start of the manga, Lloyd is entirely single and has zero issues with that.
Yeah.
And he is allowed to remain a bachelor, and there is no societal pressure on him to, prior to this point in this mission being an important component. He's totally fine. There's no consequence for him that we're aware of, at least. And there might have been some social pressure, but not to the point where he would be arrested, kidnapped, and maybe killed. So.
Yeah, I think there is a script in sort of hegemonic masculinity, which is like, sow your wild oats, which is like go be a terrible person for a while, and then at a certain age you're pressured to settle down, as they call it.
Do you feel settled?
Do I feel settled? Never.
Never?
No.
Oh.
Sorry.
I'm too rambunctious?
Yeah. So I have another point from Endo speaking to this. Endo says, quote, "I'm definitely not trying to portray the Forger family as virtuous and righteous. So if their nice family side is the only one people perceive, it leaves me with a kind of feeling," end quote. Yeah. So Endo might be suggesting that the desire to view Spy Family in this like nuclear light, or even just positive light, is maybe itself evidence of that pressure. That we are forcing a family healthy dynamic on it in something that is not intended to be healthy, and that the author and artist is actively trying to communicate these people are not okay.
They really aren't.
No, when you think about it even a little bit, Yor is clearly a sociopath. Clearly.
Yeah. And I love that for her. She's my favorite sociopath.
She's delightful.
She's delightful.
Second best waifu in manga.
Rika?
Rika.
Okay. I'm glad to know that that's where I stand. I'm a solid third in comparison to Rika and Yor. I don't know how to phrase this. I do also question their categorization in some capacities, kind of in the way you're talking about it, because they are forced into the conceptualization of a nuclear family, and that might not be entirely healthy. But also, the fact that they're a blended family never really comes into play, except during the interview.
Right.
Where Anya is asked if she liked her biological parents more, and whether, and she cries and Lloyd punches bitch because he deserved it. So I question why them being a blended family isn't part of their social identity after that point.
Right.
They never really have a lot of discursive conversations about it with their family or loved ones. There are facades that they go through, but they're viewed much the same as any other family, whereas in reality, and you and I can speak to this, there are social consequences to being a part of a blended family. People have questions and looks and stuff.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
And those are not explored in the manga very much, as you said.
They're not, right? And I do think something that I think is important as well, Anya's past is basically erased, for the most part, at least from... Initially, yeah. And that is our presentation to her, but, in real life, children have friends, and sometimes they're embarrassed when their stepmom shows up and they're like, "Hey, I'm dropping my kid off," and they're like, "Oh God, no, why?" Or, there's very realistically, the majority of blended families come into existence when there is still other parents present in the lives of the children involved. Right. Or even if there aren't children involved, their previous partners that might have an effect on the relationship because they've been part of a long-term family for a while. So there's nuance there, right? Like, there's not a lot of exterior relationships that would potentially be threatened or nuanced by the fact that they are a blended family. So it's just fascinating that they get put into this lens. And again, like the darkness of it all. None of them are normal. And all of them have issues. And, you know, I love that for them.
To put this to a more specific question, what do you think about the romance subplot?
Between Yor and Lloyd?
Between Yor and Lloyd, and what that kind of does to the nuclear family. Because it's almost like a situation where if they kiss, it kind of makes the illusion real to some degree, I would argue.
Yep.
So what does that say? Because they were all waiting for these two to kiss and fall in love. Are we the problem?
Kiss, fall in love. Sorry. I have a couple of different reactions to that. The initial one that is a surface reaction is, oh my god, cute. The other part of me that's more analytical questions whether that would even be love if they did kiss.
Yeah.
Because neither of them know about the double lives that they have, and I don't think you can love a person as, like, a part of them. You have to love the whole person, which is something you talk about often, because you're cute.
I mean, we could argue that them kissing would actually be a loss. It would be them being sucked into a fantasy.
It would.
That is potentially harmful.
Exactly.
Or maybe they create a romance that is in defiance to the norms. But I would very much argue that the romantic fantasy that we see so often in media is clearly linked to the nuclear family fantasy. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's step one.
Yep. I don't know. I do think it would be a loss if they kissed without knowing about who the other person truly is. And it would be, like...
That would be the greater intimacy.
That would be the greater intimacy, in my mind. Like, I don't want them to kiss. I want them to reveal each other's secret identities to each other, because I think that is the, like, paramount of what actual intimacy between them would be. And I think that them just kissing, in the context that we currently have of them not knowing who the other person is, I think that is a loss, as you're describing it, because that is giving into a fantasy that isn't real and is fake. That's saying that things that are fake are more preferable to authenticity. And I want them to be authentic.
They deserve authenticity.
Lloyd deserves to get crushed by a strong dommy mommy.
Oh.
If he so chooses.
If he so chooses.
So, basically, to kind of summarize some of what I'm talking about in terms of the ways blended families are different than nuclear families, there are a lot of articles out there, some very depressing, about the ways in which blended families are different than nuclear families and why they have such a strong impact. And we could go on with a number of different family variations as well. I didn't come to this one with polyamory research because it wasn't really relevant, but we could another time, perhaps. There is a lot of societal pressure on blended families. So the majority of research on blended families right now is going into the negative components of it, which are, how are the children traumatized by suddenly having an additional parent figure that they have to figure out how to deal with, and the impacts of divorce or, like, loss of a parent and stuff like that. So there's a lot of ways in which blended families are held up to a magnifying glass and asked, what the fuck is wrong with you? It's true. Whereas when you Google it, or when I looked into it, if you look at or try to find articles that are talking about the benefits of blended families, fucking diddly squat, bro. They don't really talk about it. They talk about supporting blended families. And I'm like, okay, cool. Everyone needs support, buddy boo. That's just life. Life is tragic. They don't really bring to light or highlight any of the ways in which having a blended family can be good or nuanced or positive. Like, for example, in our own personal experience, there are personality traits that you like that I have that your kids are picking up on, and that you hope bring them more confidence and joy. And there are ways in which they're able to connect with me that they might not be able to connect with you or other people in their family. And that's positive, right? So as much as there is this shift in terms of like family style and in a lot of ways still a loss, I feel like it's the same thing as as researchers basically defining blended families as a breakup and not as any kind of reunion, right? Like we don't have long-term studies on like children of divorce or who have lost parents and what their lives look like after the fact, when there has been a blended family in place for a period of time. Research doesn't care about that. They care about the immediate effects on children, and they care about the immediate negatives that are present, and that's defining something by the beginning of it and not the entirety of it, and I think I have issue with that.
Yeah, it was interesting to see in Spy Family too, just the ways in which Anya responds to the specifics of who Lloyd is and the specifics of who Yor is. Watching her as a character mature under that sort of paradigm of those two individuals and the specific traits they bring has been kind of fascinating.
Well, and then one could argue, especially because of how different and weird every single member of the family is, it is the best possible outcome for them to have found each other through these coincidences, quote unquote, or whatever, contrivances you said earlier. Anya probably would not do as well with a prototypical family that wasn't cognitively interesting for her to scan the minds of.
And arguably Lloyd and Yor couldn't be with a normie.
Yeah, very much so. They really couldn't, because they'd be like, oh, I need someone who gives me all of the love and hugs and kisses and I don't know. Is that what normal people do?
Yep.
Okay. They go, oh, but like even, I mean, I'm just saying though, like the ways in which Yor and Lloyd interact, like they don't ask about each other's personal business.
No.
Whereas when you come home, I want to know all about what happened while you were gone.
Yeah, and we should talk about contrivance there too, because like it is ridiculous that Lloyd and Yor do not immediately recognize that each other is a spy and an assassin.
Yeah.
Like hilariously, like they're it's some pokeroo nonsense.
Yeah, she literally gets stabbed or shot at one point.
Yeah.
And he doesn't notice, and he's just like, she's just really upset.
Yeah, and he's like the smartest spy. He's
yeah.
Sherlock Holmes, and he misses this.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's I think it shows the way in which Spy Family functions in a sort of augmented reality, where the author can do whatever they want, and we're not holding it to realism.
Or you could make the argument that we don't pay attention to the flaws of the people we love.
Yeah, that's true. He's blinded, but he doesn't love her yet.
Bitch, he does.
Lloyd, however, boring as shit.
I still think he's hot.
Yeah, I don't think anyone should think he's hot. I know they do, but I don't think they
Because
should.
there's one person in front of you who's like, damn.
Yeah.
Are you saying this because I think he's hot?
Probably in there. Yeah. All right. Well, so other than the crushworthiness of the respective characters, what's your takeaway from Spy Family as a manga in terms of its sexuality and gender representation?
I think for me the takeaway is that the author's actually trying to say that family is what you make it, and it doesn't always have to be real for it to have meaning.
I like that.
Yeah.
I don't know where I am. I think it's surfacing all of these aesthetics and all of these pressures and all of these realities in a way that I think is actually pretty open to interpretation.
Yeah.
But I love the thought experiment of it. And outside of that, I find Spy Family kind of joyful.
Yeah.
It's just a great manga. Again, I do think that the anime is a sanitized version. Not to an extreme. And I find the anime absolutely delightful as well. I just don't think it's aligning with the extent of the darkness that we see in the manga.
That's true.
That's it.
I just want to watch people get wrecked by Yor. That's really all I'm here for. Yeah. And for Anya's hijinks, I guess. She's real cute. She's adorable.
I can get tired of Anya in a hurry, but I take your point.
Oh, God. She can be a little annoying. But
Yes.
I still think she's great. She's
Yeah,
fun.
absolutely.
She's interesting, nuanced.
Small dose. Small dose character.
Christ. What happened to that protected at all costs thing? You're like, no, toss her out with the trash.
That's not me, that's Crunchyroll.
Okay, well, I mean, she's adorable. She's great.
Okay.
I would protect her
Okay.
from demons.
So what are we doing next?
We're doing JoJo's Bizarre Adventures because,
Iconic.
iconic, gay.
Is
Definitely gay.
Oh.
I mean, it's queer coded, and we might talk about queer coding later on.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of the relationships are heterosexual, but you can't look at that and tell me it's not gay.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Okay.
thank you for listening.
Thank you. Have fun. Don't die.